In this part of the video, we're going to learn a style called tutting. Tutting is not a difficult style to learn, but it takes a lot of time in that it's all about 90-degree angles, and to get those angles to look good, you have to put in the practice time to put it into your muscle memory. Tutting is not about speed, it's about keeping your angles really clean. So that's the secret to tutting, is it's not about speed, it's all about keeping your angles clean. Okay, so we're going to break down tutting into shoulder movements, elbow movements, and wrist movements, and then we're going to bring the three of them together. But when we start with our shoulders, real simple, we just have our arm out, and you see, boom, 90 degrees. Right, we can do that with both arms, and we can do our arm out. You can see 90 degrees right here, right? We don't want to be going like this, or like that, 90 degrees. Besides 90-degree angles, there's also straight angles, and that's, for example, if you were to put your arm straight up, you want it to be like this. You don't want your arm on the side or bent at the elbow. If you put your arm out, you can put your elbow up, and you can put your elbow forward. What's important here is tutting is just as much about isolation as it is about keeping straight angles. So if you notice, just like from the robot section, I'm isolating this joint when I'm tutting, and I'm not doing this, or I'm not doing this, because those completely mess up my angles. So here's an angle, and here's an angle. And there's also an angle going down here. Now what's really important about this one is a really common mistake I see people make is, for example, if their arms are up here like this, and they bring them down, this is what they do. Their shoulders come up, and they're kind of hunched over. And that does not look very good, so you want to try to keep your upper body upright when you do this angle. So once again, our arms are out, we can go up, up, down, down. We can go forward direction. Notice if I bend over, there's my 90-degree angle right there. Or we can go down. Now, the wrist is the hardest one because you need a little bit of flexibility here. And that is to hit straight angles like that, where I have a 90-degree angle here, and angles like that, where I have 90 degrees here. You need to stretch a little bit, because what you'll find is your arm won't quite go, and you'll kind of have, angles like this where your arms are up. It doesn't look as clean. And to do that, you need to do a little stretching. So it's real simple. Just put your arm out, basically grab your fingers and pull them back, and you'll feel a stretch. You also want to keep your shoulder down for this. It helps you stretch, and that'll help you go from angles like this to angles like that. Before I teach the wrists, I want you to keep in mind that you want these angles to be really straight. And to do that, what you want to do is not have your hands like this. This is a really common mistake people make, and they're called like duck hands basically. They look kind of like a duck. And so what you want to do is flatten out your knuckles, like that. So if you were to look at your hand from the side, the knuckles aren't sticking up. They're flush and flat from both sides. Alright? So you put your arm out, and you can put your hand down. 90-degree angle. You can put your hand up. 90-degree angle. Also, we can turn our hand to the side, just like that. Once again, this is an isolation. Pretend your isolation point is right here. You just turn it right around there. You don't want to be going like this or like that. Isolated. Another thing you can do is, if your hand is here and you flip it to the side, you can then flip it over, and then flip it back, and then flip it over, and flip it back, over, back. So there we go. We have movements with our shoulder, movements with our elbow, and we have movements with our wrist. Okay, now all of these individually are really easy. What makes tutting a little bit more difficult and interesting is really making puzzles and making unique combinations using all of these three things. Okay, what I'm going to do now is walk you through some really common angles, and so just follow along with me so you can get the feel and the idea of different angles you can create. large angle tuts. So these are when your arms are really far out and you're kind of doing really big tuts. There's also tuts that are a little bit smaller and that are kind of right here in your middle area. And for that, usually you have 90 degrees in your elbow, 90 degrees in your shoulder. And so if you're here, you can bring one arm down, and once again, you just made another 90-degree angle right here. You can do them at the same time, like that. So all I'm doing is I'm doing this and this at the same time, which kind of flips the sides, and add a little extra cool effect. I can just step together. So my feet are apart right now, and I step together. I can do this on the other side, and so on. And then I can keep tutting. So now I'm going to teach you a little style element within tutting, and that is this wrist roll here. And so when you're moving around, or just kind of keeping an angle, and you want to, step or something, you can kind of do these little wrist rolls to make it a little bit more interesting. And they're really simple in that you keep your wrist pointed in one direction, and then you flip it so it's inverted in the same direction. So here we go. You point your fingers away from your body. It comes in towards your computer, towards your face, flip. But all that happens at the same time. So it turns in and flips. What you don't want to do is kind of do one of these with your fingers or lose your isolation. Once again, all this is isolated, and we're just flipping this here, isolating the wrist as well. Okay, so far you might be thinking, hey, this is a joke. Tutting? Come on. I just stick my arm up and down, but that is only the real basics. If you're moving more than one angle at the same time, it can get complex and pretty interesting very quickly. Similar to the robot, where you can do big movements and small movements at the same time. It's the same thing with tutting, where you can do a big movement, bring your arm up here, and bring your wrist up here. So like that. Once again, that's a big movement and a small movement, and it's adding more complexity. Also similar to the robot is you don't want to be doing 3 movements at the same time, 4 movements at the same time, because then it becomes very sloppy. Another thing you can do with tutting is incorporate other body parts, and the easiest one to do is the head. For example, if I'm tutting and always using my arms, another thing I like to do is incorporate my head and kind of make it move along with my arms. Not all the time, but sometimes it makes it a little bit more fun, a little bit more interesting to do that. What I think takes tutting from a real beginner level of just doing single angles at a time to the next level is the concepts of isolations, isolated tuts, and the concept of different dimensions. So one of the most basic examples of this is if you have your hands here. To do that, you just put your arms out, palms facing out, bring your hands together. That's what it looks like. And you just take one arm and you slide it out like that. And you turn it, slide it back together. See that isolation? This arm is staying still while this one is moving. You can also do this in the up direction, right? I'm isolating this right here as I'm moving in terms of this. Or I can isolate the other way, where I'm isolating this arm in terms of this motion. And you can flip it. This allows you to move. You can do that, bring it down, cross, isolating. So I think isolations add a lot to tutting because they make it much more illusional. Now the last thing with tutting that makes it go from the basic level to the next level is changing directions and changing dimensions. And what I mean by that is when a lot of beginners start tutting, they're always in here. They're always just in front of their bodies doing tutting, and it could be very good, it could be isolated, but the problem is that they're always facing the same direction. And to do that, you want to be able to tut in this direction, change directions, and tut in a different direction. That adds a lot of variability. It makes it a lot more unique if you can start tutting in multiple directions. You can go forward, back, left, right, and change directions. Now my favorite way to start thinking about changing directions is to do it in this method. So your right arm is going to have a 90-degree angle here, and your other arm is going to have a 90-degree angle like that. Okay? It's like your hands are parallel this way, and this one is in. Now what the move I'm going to show you looks like is like that. Now I can tut in this direction. So all I did there was I'm in this position here. I slide my left arm forward. Once again, I slide my left arm forward. I put it across. Put the other arm out and go here. All I did was I was in this position and then I flipped it across, do the same exact thing in the other position, but I did that in a little bit of a cutting form with this kind of cross motion. You can also do that upwards. It's real simple, right? Up, down, up, finish. Up, down, up, finish. I'm doing that like this. And now when I'm here, all I do is I pretend that this is isolated and I turn. Now I'm in a different direction. I can start tutting here. I can bring this arm forward. I can bring this down. A lot of variations you can do. After you get the basics of just tutting in one dimension, you want to be able to, while tutting, change to the side dimension. You want to be able to change to the other dimension. And then, when you're doing isolated tuts, you can use that to move your body down and up. And so now, you can go up, down, left, right, and do multiple movements, and there's really billions of different variations you can do with tutting. Also, you can incorporate tutting with other movements. For example, if I'm tutting and I get here, what I like to do is just go into waving. So you can incorporate your tutting with your other styles.